Alrighty, guys, we're here with. I think this might be the first training one. Maybe we'll see. Probably though. So this is hypertrophy, right? Hypertrophy basically just means trophy is growing. Hyper means no. Trophy means like change up or down. Hyper means up. Hypo means down. So you could have hypotrophy or hypertrophy. Hypotrophy is losing. Hypertrophy is gaining. So we obviously want to understand the mechanisms of hypertrophy, stimulus, how to create it, what we need. So first of all, what is hypertrophy as a stimulus? It goes as simple as this, right? Initial stimulus, which is like lifting weight, that sends a signal to the brain that we either need uh, more muscle or more power, which increases muscle protein synthesis, basically. But the initial stimulus has to be like strong enough, essentially. The initial stimulus could be picking up a weight you've never done before, a weight that causes enough tension, doing enough repeated thing in a row that causes like enough signal sending to cause enough muscle protein synthesis. If the stimulus is strong enough, right, you're basically just telling your body like, I need more muscle. So it starts to create muscle protein synthesis. But we can start to look at the actual mechanisms of how we create a big enough signal to send mechanical tension, metabolic stress, and muscle damage. Those are like the three main prongs of hypertrophy. But all three tend to happen at the same time to varying degrees. But ultimately, like mechanical tension's at the top. So how do we create the hypertrophy stimulus? These are the three ways that we're talking about. We've got mechanical tension. This is like controlling the movement, controlling the tempo, loading volume, increasing the volume via reps, weight, more weight than you did last time, more tension than you did last time. Without you're basically like loading more through that muscle than you did the week before under the same conditions. Then you've got metabolic stress. This could be like drop sets, supersets, which are a little bit harder to manage, like the conditions of. Anything that like throws a load of pump in, that's basically it, right? And you get that from like at the end of a session where you've accumulated volume over time. If you're like pretty advanced, this is where we would introduce intensifiers, partial drop sets, rest pauses. They aren't as trackable as the main body of mechanical tension, so we don't like worry loads about them. Then you got muscle damage. So this just occurs when tension is applied to your muscles, right? It's a combination of the above actions. The goal is always to continually put your muscles under the right amount of tension to elicit muscle damage. So, like, what are those requirements? Number one, you need to be working at a suitable RPE or RIR, which is reps in reserve or rate of perceived exertion. So you should always be aiming to work at a minimum rate of perceived exertion, with 10 being you cannot physically move the bar again, at a 7. That should be minimum. And I'm talking a true 3 reps away from failure. I like to push people towards 9 because I think most people are probably hovering at a 7 or 8 anyway. So if I was to tell them 7 or 8, they might go down to a 6 or 7. Minimum 7. And if you're staking it a true 7, you could probably handle a little bit more volume. The higher up, closer towards like 9 and 10, which is where I like to train, the lower amount of sets you tend to do. If you're unaware, like where to start, if you're going to do it yourself, like just start somewhere, pick any weight, do a set, and just like keep doing that rep until you physically can't move it, and then you'll figure out what 10 feels like, and then you just work back. Form. So all exercise should be good form. If there was a hierarchy, form would be at the top. In fact, there is. We'll make it. We'll call it now Josh Bridgman's hierarchy. The better the form, the increased likelihood of hypertrophy, but also the decreased risk of injury, which is really, really important. If you're able to, like, getting a coach to give you an expert feedback is the fastest way. So you guys are already way ahead of the curve. We're already doing that here. So if your form falters, like, drop the weight and reps rather than squeeze it out, because as soon as you start to squeeze it out, it's like, this is when the metaphorical wheels start to shake, right? So we've got to be mindful of it. So muscle damage, like, obviously you need muscle damage. This ultimately occurs when enough tension is put through a muscle. So we've got to just combine suitable RPE with good form, and you're going to cause muscle damage, along with the overarching progressive overload, which is here. Volume has to increase via reps, via weight, via the form that you did. That is like the hypertrophy requirement. Minimum tension, progress, eat in a surplus. So, how do we summarize hypertrophy? Hypertrophy is essential for successful progression in physique. Do not underestimate it. Treat it like you're actively doing it. In order to create hypertrophy, we need a minimum effort, RPE 7, right? Minimum effort. So try it. And the higher up the ladder you get, the more hypertrophy you stimulate, but also the more fatigue, which is why we talk about fatigue management later on. Complete the exercise with good form is essential. Make sure you can replicate the exercise week in, week out, and keep things standardized so you can progress. Stimulate all the pathways of hypertrophy, right? Which means you need to do a little bit more than last time, better form. Form, then intensity, then weight. If you could put 100 kilos through the body and it do the same as putting 500 kilo through the body, I would always choose the 100 kilos because it's 400 kilos less tension for your bloody joints and tendons. So, and this is all relatively conditioned that you're eating enough protein. So, quick one for hypertrophy: train hard enough, keep tension, good form.